Jasmine with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I am going to be doing a flower pendant for you, and I'm calling this the sunflower. I'm going to be doing it with you guys in some sunflower colors. I'm working with some SuperDuo and kind of getting a little pattern designed out of the actual pendant. You can change up the different colors of the petals, make the flower all your own. You can see here I kind of did a reverse. So whenever you do the sunflower pendant, take your time, pick out colors, have fun, and make the flower your own design. For the coloring that I'm going to be using for our design and for the materials, we'll kind of list them here at the beginning. If you need to purchase any of them or want the list, there's a little eye in the top right hand corner of the video. That eye is information from us as the film creators for you guys to access, like the links to the different products. You can also go below the video to the description or the details of the video, which say when the video was posted. There's a little down arrow or a show more button. Click on that and it'll give you links to all of these different items online as well. So for the pendant that we'll be doing together, we're doing the sunflower colors. I'm using the Amber Celsium color of the SuperDuos. And here in the design, I used the white teal luster Picasso finish, that nice kind of tealish color. In the middle of our sunflower, we're going to be using a 12mm Cabochon, and this is a round cab in our tiger eye color for the middle of my sunflower. Here on the design, I have one of the check cabs, which is check glass cab, and it's in the Lumi Rose or the Lumi Pink color. In addition to the SuperDuos and our cab for the middle, we're going to be using some 15 seed beads as well as some 4mm rounds, and I'm using crystals for those. So again, we have the Amber Celsium for our SuperDuo, and then we have our 20mm cab in the rounded cab in that tiger eye gemstone. You can also use an 18mm cab. The pattern really won't change until you get to the back of the design, and it'll just change a tiny little bit. So 18 or 20mm cab will work for you. We have some nice options in the check cabs and the gemstones and the Luna cabs to kind of search all over. In addition to those, like I said, we're using some 15-0s. I'm going to be using the Miyuki brand 15-0, and I have the silver lined root beer here that I'm going to use towards the center of my sunflower. And then to brighten it up on the outer edge, we're using the galvanized gold color. So I have two different colors, whereas here I use that transparent Topaz AB the whole way through the project. In addition to the 15s, the SuperDuos, and the cab, we have some 4mm round beads here. I chose to use the Crystal Capri in the example. I'm going to be using the Potomac Crystal Round Golden Champagne color as the outside to kind of get lighter as the sunflower grows. It does have a hidden bail on it, which you can expose and make it so it sits higher up, but it's a rather large pendant, so I like how it sits on the leather. So if you have a finished leather cording or you want to do a cording, grab some leather and you can make a cording. I have a video showing you how to do that and what products to use on that end. In addition to the beads, we have some thread here, and 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the green color is what I'm going to use. Every once in a while you'll see a little hint of green in the sunflower. I went back and forth between white and green, which color to use. I'm going to use the green since it kind of gives me that whole earthy, flowery look. In addition to the thread, you want a needle, and I have a size 10 beading needle sitting here. You can use 10, 11, 12, any of those will work for you. I also have my thread zap or my thread burner, and I use that to burn the thread off the spool, as well as to burn down the edges of the actual thread here, so that way you get a nice finish and you don't see the knot at the end. When that little nub is kind of created and you're getting it off the spool, you can use a pliers and kind of press down on it, flatten it out, and that'll make it easier for you to then actually thread your needle. I also have a nice workable surface. A bead mat is usually what I use, or a bead on it board, and kind of carry it from one room to the other. And other than that, you just kind of need your creativity. You can change up colors of SuperDuo. You can really kind of have fun with the design and make it your own. So it's based on a herringbone stitch, and we're going to get ready to do that herringbone stitch by dumping out some of our SuperDuos and our central color of our 15-0 seed beads. Get about 5 feet of beading thread on your beading needle and we'll get ready to begin. So to start the design, we are going to start in a round circle, build our herringbone rows or our petals out, and then actually come back and encapsulate our actual cabochon into the design. To get started, we're going to be stringing on 24 of our SuperDuo beads. The SuperDuo beads are going to sit, because we're doing a herringbone stitch, in a grouping of 2. In between each set of 2 SuperDuos, we're going to put a 15-0 seed bead. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to pick up on your needle a stop bead to start. This, if you want to, you can actually hold onto the thread. That's kind of up to you. Because it's the video, I won't hold onto the thread. Normally I do. But you want to pick up a bead that's not actually going to be used in your project. I just have a Delica here sitting randomly. And I'm going to let that drop down to the base of my thread till I have about 3 inches left. Take your needle and thread through that bead 2 times and a third. What that's going to do is put these 2 loops, when I pull tight, onto the outside of the bead, and it'll stop the beads from falling off the thread. Now we do our group of 24 beads. It's 24 beads and it is 12 groups of 2. So we're going to do 2 of our seed beads, 2 of our SuperDuos, and then 2 of our seed beads. Again, 2 and 2. Whenever you're working with SuperDuos, or actually any type of multi-hold bead, you always want to make sure also before using them that the holes are not blocked. That being said, if you do start using them and your holes do get blocked, the tool that I would recommend for that is the tulip needle, the fine beading awl, and that's in the sharp section there. So if we come to that, I didn't test mine even though I told you to. If we come to that situation, I'll show you how to use the awl. But hopefully with these we won't have an issue. Some of the different coatings are going to clog the holes, and usually 9 times out of 10 I'm able to get them open. So I'm continuing to add here my 12 groups of 2 with those 2 seed beads in between. When you are finished adding those 12 groups of 2, you want to make sure, because you didn't start with seed beads, that you're going to end with seed beads, because we want to make sure when we can make this into a round loop that we have all 24 seed beads on our thread and needle. So I have on the 12 groups of 2 here, ending with some seed beads because I started with the SuperDuos. Thread and needle is going to come back to the end of the stop bead and go into the first 2 SuperDuos, and the first 2 seed beads, and then the next 2 SuperDuos. So you're going through 6 beads total, 4 SuperDuos, and 2 seed beads through that same bottom hole that we just sewed through. From there, we're going to do what's called a step up. To step up, we are taking our thread and needle on the side of the SuperDuo that we're coming out of, and it's going to go from the bottom hole to the top hole of that SuperDuo. Give a nice tight pull, and that gets us in position ready for our herringbone stitch. For the herringbone stitch, in between the area where there are seed beads, we're going to stitch right from one SuperDuo to the other. Between the SuperDuos, right when they create their V, we're going to continue with the herringbone stitch. Don't be worried if you don't know herringbone. We're just doing one go around of it. All we're going to be doing is picking up 2 new SuperDuos. When we're coming out of one, we're going to sew through the next one right above the seed beads, straight across to the next little V section. Give a nice little tight yank and on to the next one. 2 more of our SuperDuos go on. They're going to go through the next SuperDuo in that V, as well as to the next set of SuperDuos. Give a tight pull and continuing around the circle. So I'm continuing around the circle, adding 2 SuperDuos between my little V of SuperDuos, and then sewing into the next set of V SuperDuos. So add 2 more. Kind of flip those SuperDuos. If they want to lay in the middle, just flip them over so that way they cooperate and kind of sit out. I'm going to go through the whole project now, adding on those SuperDuos. If you see any places where they're kind of sitting funny, just go back, wrestle with the thread a little bit, and make sure they're sitting correct. So again, we're going through the whole project. We're adding 24 more SuperDuos in groups of 2 between our little V's there, and then linking into the next V. So no seed beads this go round. So go the whole way around your project, adding in your little herringbone V's there. I'm back to the last V, and what I'm going to do is add my last 2 SuperDuos, and I'm going through that first set of V SuperDuos, as well as the first SuperDuo that I put on as I went through this second pass. So right here I'm through that first SuperDuo, and I want to make sure that it's all laying out nice and flat, because it'll have a little bit of a wave to it, but I don't want a total wave that you're going to lose some of the design. From there, and going through that first V that my thread was coming out of, I'm going to go through the first SuperDuo. So this is the second row of the herringbone that we added, and the second SuperDuo. So we finished off our row and then went through the first V that we added the SuperDuo beads through, and then we're going through the first 2 beads in that second SuperDuo row. Again, just kind of play around with it, make sure you don't have a ton of extra thread showing. And from there, we're going to do another step up. So we're going to step up from the bottom hole to the top hole of that same SuperDuo that your thread is coming out of. From there, you can see we kind of have this V section going on. You can see it a little bit better with the green here, but I really wanted to do a sunflower look. So with that being said, in between our V's, we're going to add 1 more SuperDuo as we go around in the circle. It's also time to grab out some of your crystals. You're going to need 12 crystals, and we're going to need 12 more of our SuperDuos. So I'm going to pour a little bit of those out here. And the sun has decided to shine bright here on my video, so I'll change that for you guys a little bit. The sunflower is coming out, and the sun is coming out really bright. So I have my next of my SuperDuos that I'm putting on, and that SuperDuo again is going to sit right inside of the actual V. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to sit and create that little petal. In between my herringbone sections, then I'm going to pick up one of those champagne 4mm rounds and put the crystal right in between each set. If you wanted to, you could go, I went back and forth with doing the champagne color, or rather the topaz color, that golden, sorry, the golden champagne. I went back and forth of using that versus the kind of that lighter color, that silky color. What I'm going to do then is go in between each row of my herringbone, I'm adding a 4mm round, and then when I'm coming out the herringbone bead, that's when they're coming out the V. For those of you that aren't super familiar with herringbone, when you're coming out that V, that's where you're going to add your next little one of your little petals for your sunflower. You can see it here on the example piece that you're adding another one of your SuperDuos, and then you're adding your crystals. I like the crystals with it because it gave it just a little pop. The other thing, we have a lot of yellow SuperDuos, which I didn't realize until I finished this design and decided that it looked like a sunflower. There are a lot of yellow options, so you could get creative. I went back and forth kind of using 2 different colors of my SuperDuos, going from darker to lighter and kind of playing with colors. So that's each video I try to kind of challenge you guys to do something. Play around with the colors and let me see what you make. Went back and forth also whether or not I should use a cabochon that's more of a black color or a brown, or sometimes sunflowers have the green. So check them out, show me what you make, and have fun with those colors and play on colors. So I'm going around here. I have 5 of my crystals in place. I'm going to continue adding my crystals and my SuperDuos for my sunflower around in a circle. So the last crystal is going into place, and I'm going to show you again how I do a little bit of that step up. I have the crystal going in, and I'm going through that first bead of that row of herringbone. So that's going to be the bead that you can see kind of the thread exposed there on the step up. I'm going to go through the first SuperDuo on that row that I just added, and then step up from the first hole of that outer SuperDuo to the second hole or outermost hole. From there, I'm going to lay my project down and just kind of flatten it out, making sure that it's still sitting nice and flat. Here's now where we're going to go in and kind of add some of our 15-0s in the golden color and make it a little bit more yellow and make that yellow pop. This is going to also make our petals pop a little bit more. To do so, we're going to be adding 3 seed beads, connecting and finishing off the top hole of the SuperDuo down to the crystal. So when you're coming out the top hole of a SuperDuo, go ahead and grab 3 15-0s, and you're going to kind of turn the project a little bit to the side so you can go through the crystal. If you don't want seed beads at the top, you'd want to grab some Super Unos, or you can leave that second hole exposed of the SuperDuo. That's kind of up to you. For this one here, I'm going to make sure to pull nice and tight so that gets rid of any extra thread that may be showing. Again, 3 beads go on. So from the crystal to the SuperDuo. So the great thing about this pendant is it's not rocket science. It's just counting. Again, 3 beads go on, go through the crystal. 3 beads go on, go through the SuperDuo. So you can see that petals are really kind of starting to take form with that bright yellow bead kind of sticking out there. So I'm going to continue going through and adding those little peaks of the gold, going through the seed beads, or adding the seed beads in between the crystals and the second hole of my SuperDuo beads. So as I'm adding my last 3 of my seed beads in, I'm going to go back through the original SuperDuo and then down the seed beads and out. From there, go through your crystal. And basically what we're doing is snaking back to get to our middle row here. Since we have the outer edge complete, you can kind of see that nice sunflower look. If you want to, you could have also kept going a little bit further. I didn't go over that, but if you wanted to use 2 beads in between here, you could keep going a little bit further. You're just going to need to add another set of crystals and probably 2 seed beads on either side of those crystals as you go through. But what I'm doing now is getting from the outer edge of my pendant into the inner edge by going through my SuperDuos and stepping down. So I went over with you guys kind of stepping up to the next level. Now all I'm doing is stepping down. So I'm going through those SuperDuos and going from the top holes into the interior bottom holes. And out then through those SuperDuos. And you can see I'm kind of turning my project to get it to go. I'm using a size 10 needle. A 12 would have made that a little bit easier and a little bit less challenging, but I'm not a big fan of 12s unless I have to. And when I go through here, I want to come out through one of my SuperDuos, and it's right next to the stop bead. You can kind of push that stop bead out of the way and send that needle through that SuperDuo, making sure that you're not going through the stop bead and not getting twisted up in the stop bead. From there, we're going to go in and we're going to add our V's in here. So the V's, when you add them in, are actually going to be a series of seed beads, and they're going to be 5 seed beads that we're going to use to kind of connect each of our seed beads in here. And I keep going back and forth whether or not I want more yellow or more brown. And I was going to use more brown, but I think I'm actually going to use some of that brighter gold yellow a little bit towards the middle here. So to add my gold, we're going to be doing them again in groups of 5. And we are adding between each of our beads, we're going to go through our 2 seed beads. And that are right there. Not through the SuperDuo, so we're just going through the seed beads. If you need to turn your project, you can. Through the 2 seed beads, add in 5 15-0s. Again, I'm going with that gold color. And then sew through, bending the project back a little bit if you have to, the next 2 seed beads. So you can see kind of how that little bump is going to occur. Again, 5 gold seed beads. And sew through the next grouping of 2 beads. And that'll make a little V on the inside of your petals. Again, 5 seed beads. So past the SuperDuos and go into the next set of 2 seed beads. Once you go around then in the circle, adding these 2 seed beads, we'll get ready to kind of add the front of what's going to catch our cabochon. So you can see I've gone in here, I'm adding in those 5 seed beads in between each of my groups of 2 seed beads and connecting them there. Continue doing that the whole rounded section of the interior of your pendant. So it's time to add the last of my 5 on. I'm back towards that stop bead. And I have my 5 seed beads on my needle. And I'm going to turn the project so I'm going through the 15-0s that I started with. I'm going through those 2 brown 15-0s and coming out. I have all my little peaks here. You can kind of get a sneak peek of what it's going to look like by putting the brown center of the sunflower in. And what you're going to do is as you're coming out of those 2 brown seed beads, you want to go up through 3 of the gold seed beads. So we did a grouping of 5 on purpose so that we would have a point. The 3rd bead in line is going to be our point. From here, we're going to add in our central row of our pendant, which is going to keep our cab nice and in place. To do so, we're going to add 2 seed beads. You could do these in either color, and then connect on to the 3rd bead of each little top here. If you want the actual cabochon to be a little bit more exposed, and you don't want to see as much gold or brown around the center of the bead, what I would suggest is actually only sewing up through 2 beads, and then we'll link on every 2 and sew through every 2 basically, and add 2 beads, sew through 2, and I'll just separate it out a little bit. But what I'm doing is adding 2 beads along, and then catching on to that 3rd bead, or that peak of every little peak, of every little triangle that we created. Again, 2 seed beads go on, go over to the next one, and sew through that little peak. The nice thing is usually that bead kind of sits up in the middle there for you. You don't have to guess too much. If you do have to guess, you're only counting to 3, so it's not that hard for you. 2 more seed beads go on, kind of make that peak sit up, and sew through the peak. So what we're doing is we're creating that lacing effect, which is going to hold in then our cabochon as we continue around the design. So go ahead and continue on, adding 2 beads between each of our little peaks of our gold beads that we added towards the interior of our sunflower. As the last 2 seed beads get put in place here, I'm going to go around the whole center row, the 2 beads that I just added, as well as that pointed 3rd bead, and make sure that I'm reinforcing this center line. That's because that's kind of where the most wear and tear on a pendant like this, other than the bail, is going to be, because that's where there's the most pressure that the cab kind of wants to pop out the middle there. I'm glad I went with the gold. So I'm going to go through here, reinforcing and sewing back through all of those central beads. Once we reinforce these central beads, we will get ready to actually flip over and kind of do the same thing along the back, but we're going to be going through SuperDuos instead of our seed beads. So now that we have the front of the pendant pretty well set up, we're going to work on the back of the pendant. To work on the back, we're going to be casing in our cab on the back. So you can see this is a check cab, like I said, and this is an 18 millimeter. And so far we haven't changed anything. What we're going to do to make our back is we're going to take our threaded needle once you get to a section where you're coming out of one of those peak 3rd beads. And you're going to sew back along the line, going back through those 2 seed beads right there, and then back through a SuperDuo. When you're coming out of a group of 2 SuperDuos, you may need to kind of twist that again, twist and turn it a little bit. I want to come out a grouping of 2 SuperDuos, which is going to be right above my brown beads, or that central row. From there, we're going to make another section, basically, kind of another bead section. That bead section is going to be 11 beads, with the 6th bead being the middle bead that will come back and trap in. So for this, you can do whichever color you want. I'll go back to the brown color. It'll help me kind of clear up my tray a little bit. So I'll get 11 beads on. And once I have those 11 beads on, I'm going to skip over the next row of the herringbone. So I'm going to take my threaded needle right over that next row of herringbone, that next little petal, and go to the one after it and go through both of those SuperDuos. Because of the way that the herringbone sits, you may need to go through one SuperDuo at a time. You don't want to break your SuperDuos because that would be sad. What you're going to get then is a little kind of loopy loop, and we're going to fold that down in order to encapsulate our cabochon. So I'm going through both SuperDuos through the bottom hole, counting 11 more beads that I put on my needle. Skipping over the next grouping of our SuperDuos, and go then to the next set of our herringbone petal. And that's going to get our next little ridge in, or a little bump. So we're going to end up with 6 of these, going through and adding in those little bead sections. So go ahead around them, skipping over some of those SuperDuos and adding in your groupings here of your 11 beads going over the SuperDuos. So the last 11 seed beads are going onto the project, and I'm going to go through the SuperDuos that my thread was coming out of in order to start my first group of 11 beads. In addition to that, I am now going to step up to the top of those little loops that I made. The cool thing about this is actually you can make it the front or make that the back. So you can almost make the pendant reversible. I'm going to put the gold to the front and put my rounded cab to the front, but you can also have it to the back so that way you don't actually see the back. When you're working with this, so I have this actual 18 millimeter cab in here, and in between there, and in between all of my little peaks, just like I did in the center of it, where I went through the third bead and I added 2 in between. I'm doing the same thing. I did groups of 11, and I'm going to go through the 6th bead. That being said, when you have a small cab like this, you can add 6 to 7 of your 15-0 seed beads in order to encapsulate that 18mm cab. For us here, we're going to go and sew up through those first 6 beads, getting to the top of our peak that we created. And you can see it's going to kind of pull in over the cab a tiny bit with the bigger cab here. With the bigger cab, we're going to do the same thing though still. We're going through, and I have one more bead to sew through. We're going to sew through, and we are going to add 7 beads in between each of our little bump ups. So you can add whichever one you want. I'll do the gold because I have more of those on my mat. And it's to the back, or if you want to make it reversible, towards the front. So go ahead and add your 7 beads on. Make that bead kind of pop up over there. Sew through the 6th bead in line. If you need to, you can count. Not a big deal. And you're going to sew through to make the connection and make kind of that bridge for your pendant to sit inside of. So again, 7 beads are going to go on. And then you're going to count over to the bead that's sticking up, that 6th bead in line, and sew through. So it's a little confusing to watch and to look at because the cab's not actually in there. So I'm just going to kind of hold it in there so you can see the effect that's going on. And that lacing along the back and then along the front. So I'm going to continue on with that design, adding in 7 of the seed beads between each of my little peaks of that root beer bead in the grouping of 11, catching on to the 7th bead, adding my little links here so I get that little lacing effect. So you can see I have this pulled pretty loosely because I haven't actually put my cab in tight there. So I'm going to go back through the first bead that my thread was coming out of as I get my last 7 beads in place here. And before you pull tight, you're going to drop your cabochon in, whether or not it is your smaller cab, where it's going to pull a little bit closer. You can even downgrade into 5 beads if you want, as you kind of look at the back of this and see that kind of snowflaking effect. Or in our case with this bigger cab, we have 7. So now you have to make the choice. Do you want this to be the front? Or do you want this to be the front? Like I said, they're completely reversible, so it doesn't really matter which one you do. I'm opening back up the cabochon little bezeling there. I'm going to flip it over and show you what it looks like if I switch so that the flat is on the back. And it's just pulled a little bit tighter with that flat on the back and then the rounded in the front, which is what I'm going to do since that's what I intended to do the whole way along. So I have the rounded towards the front, flat in the back, just like I did previously with the front. Now we have to hold the cabochon in place, but we are sewing along that whole back row. So that's going to be the 7 gold seed beads that we added, as well as that 7th bead, or that 6th bead rather, sorry, that sticks up of the root beer color. I'm going the whole way around the circle, reinforcing and adding in. Going the whole way around. And what that's going to do is make that nice and tight as you pull, and make sure that your cab is not coming out at all and that you're not going to lose it. So I'm going around here. You can see also the stop bead is just kind of to the front of the project. Don't worry, we'll get rid of that. So if you think, oh, that's still there, don't worry. So I'm going the whole way around here. And I'm almost the whole way around because I'm going to show you guys how to do kind of that hidden bail. And I really should just switch to a size 12 needle so I don't have to fight with some of these 15-0 silver lined ones. All right. So we have that whole center done now. You can see I pulled nice and tight, and that tightens up the project. So again, it kind of makes it reversible. You can wear it flat in the back and see that just simple line of gold, or like I intended, kind of that nice kind of sunflower look going towards the front. From there, we are going to do our hidden bail. And then we're actually going to get rid of our thread and bring it towards the front and get rid of the stop bead. So I liked the idea with this because it is a larger pendant. You can see kind of in my palm there, that it's about 1.5 inches wide. I like it so that it sits, that the actual pendant itself sits and then it looks like it's on the thread or on the rope. So to do so, rather than having a loop right at the top of the pendant, I want to have it behind the pendant. So my bail, I'm going to do a hidden bail, or a bail that's basically at the back of the project. You can see it right there. If you want to, and you do want it to hang down a little bit, you can make a bail at the top. To do the hidden bail, I want to come out of the back of my pendant here through one of the root beer colored beads. So through one of the root beer beads. And I know it's going to seem very, very simple, but all we're going to do is add more of our 15-0s. When you're coming out the root beer, you're going to add a collection of approximately 8 to 11 beads, depending on how many or what you think you're going to put it on. Right there, I have 10 beads on. And I'm going to go into the pendant and actually sew through that middle row of the herringbone beads. So I have those beads on, and I'm sewing into that middle row of herringbone. If you need to, because of the way that the herringbone sits, sew through one bead at a time, going through the herringbone stitch. I'm taking my time here and wiggling it through. From there, you can see you have your little loop that you created. Coming out the back then, add 3 more of your 15-0 seed beads. And I have 3 left on my bead mat, which is perfect. Go back 3 beads of your 15-0s and sew down through the rest of them that you put on. So in my case, I'm going back through 7. You can see that kind of creates a little hidden bail back there, where it just goes on a Y on either end of the SuperDuos and comes through the back then. From there, I'll take the needle and go through that 15-0 bead so that it's on the opposite side of where the thread is coming out of. So the thread is coming out to the top. I'm going to go in and sew through to the bottom. From there then, once I have it sewn through, I'm just going to reinforce my actual bail, and we're going to get ready to bring the thread out towards the front of my sunflower and tie it off. As you're done reinforcing your bail then, you can sew along the central row of the cabochon and down basically the V that you created, which is going to bring you out when you bring your thread and needle out close to the front where the stop bead is. What I'm going to do then is just trace back through my beads, getting the thread back to where that stop bead is. So I'm not overthinking it. I'm just sewing right from the back to the front, right towards that stop bead. Once you have your thread and needle then coming out right near the stop bead, you're going to take off the stop bead and simply tie a knot. And that is actually going to end the pendant itself. So you're just snaking the thread back through those beads, and we're going to tie off the thread and burn it down. As you have fun finishing the design and the idea, kind of, like I said, you could make a really awesome collection of flowers that you can wear at each different season. You could do poinsettias. You can really kind of play on the colors. You can make them bigger. If you want to do mini duos, you just have to change your count, and you can kind of play with that design as well. Again, if you need any of the materials to do this sunflower pendant, You can go back to the beginning of the video, to the listing of them, or to that little eye information, or below the video. You can also, if you like this YouTube video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get regular updates then when there's new videos available, when we post things, regular updates on products, on supplies, on designs, and new things coming at you from the bead world. You can also stay connected with us by shopping at PotomacBeads.com. Visit any of our local shops that may be near you, as well as staying connected with us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as joining our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. That's a members only group that you can ask to become a member of, and it's a great way to interact with people that love to make jewelry, create wonderful designs, and are really happy to give their opinions and aid you in becoming a better jewelry maker. So it's a really great interactive forum of people that I love to see kind of their daily posts and what people are creating. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have fun making the sunflower pendant.